You're listening to the Good News Podcast with Jamie Holtom, brought to you by NBUC.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Good News Podcast. So glad that you could join us today. Man, are you in for a treat? This may be one of my favorite podcasts we've done so far. This is with my good friend, Leo O'Brien. He is a man of action. I like to call him a Heart Lake hero. He's got some cool stories in this episode that really shows how everyday people can make a difference simply by the way they respond and being open to doing whatever is required. Sit back, relax, get ready to have some fun because Leo is a fun guy. Let's dive in. Well, welcome everybody. So glad to have you joining us on the Good News Podcast. We are with a very special guest today. This is someone who I have wanted to have this conversation with in a more passion for many years, to be honest. And this is a gentleman, Leo O'Brien. You're going to get to know about Leo today and hear some of the beautiful things that he has been a part of in this community of Brampton. But I'm telling you, this guy is a man of action. Some of you will know Leo. I've spoken with Leo many times before, and often with a phrase that I heard him say a number of years ago. He said, "Hey, when it's all been said and done, often there's more said than done." I love that. And Leo does his very best to make sure that that isn't the case. Leo, thanks so much for being a part of the Good News Podcast today. Really appreciate you and can't wait to talk today about some of the things that you've been a part of in this community. But just wanted to check in first as we get started, maybe a little introduction as far as your family and your history here in Brampton and just how you're doing through this whole COVID experience.
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me and allowing me to share these moments. Means a lot to me. I find, generally speaking, life is a very precious thing. And the more we share the precious parts, the better we all are. And I suppose coming to Brampton in 1990 from Montreal was a very special time. It was a month after I got married. And sometimes I get Rosemary going by mixing up the moving date with the marrying date, but I don't really try to, I don't need to do that too much. It's an old joke now, but we came together as a beautiful family. I was originally a skating instructor of her son, who was 4 at the time, and we literally skated into each other's lives. We got married, like I said, a month before we moved here, when the young lad was 10. He's now 40, and we just celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary. And, I'm really blessed because I had a wonderful life in Montreal up until I was 37. And then I started a whole new life here in Brampton, not knowing it from much other than it looked very attractive. Parks, greenlands, sports. It was a no-brainer when we were choosing where to come, as my wife was being offered a job to teach in Mississauga, where in Montreal, English school board positions were kind of drying up. And the timing, everything was we can look back, it was meant to be.
Yeah.
And with COVID, I suppose, like, we're all finding ways to cope and discovering things about ourselves. And there are some positives amongst, unfortunately, the very many negatives. But strengthening wise, I've never felt stronger and better and more and kind of motivated to just carry on doing my work, in the shadow of someone like yourself.
Oh, well, thanks, Leo. I call you the humble hero. We're going to tell you a bit more about why, because you're so humble, but you really, when you think about a person who loves their neighbor, I just see you having lived that and living that out. So even now through COVID, Leo and I happen to live in the same neighborhood. We're both in Heart Lake, and I was out for a walk, like we all aren't. We all walking all over the place these days, and that's great. It's one of the blessings of COVID. It's all good. But of course, what do I see but Leo talking with a neighbor, absolutely socially distanced. It's all safe. Just want to always name those kinds of things, but just bringing joy and life to others, not just in these big projects that you're going to hear that Leo's been about over the years, but also in those very simple day-to-day, just talking with your neighbor, bringing some love by who we are. Leo, when I first met you, I don't know if you remember, but my recollection is we as a church at NBUC, we were doing some concerts over at Norton Place Park because there was some crime happening there. And so the city had asked us if we would go there just to be a presence and do some things in the park. Because the idea at the time, which I totally agreed with, was if we could be a positive presence in that park, then that would help the crime decline, because you can't do crime when there's people there doing something positive in the park. So we were over there, and I remember you were on a unicycle riding through the park and picking up glass. And I think the initiative was WAG, Walkers Against Glass, or something like that you'd started. But that's my recollection when I first met you. And I thought, man, this guy is cool. Like, this guy's unique. Who rides a unicycle through the city picking up glass? And just the whole deal for me was like, this guy's got game. He's got something special. Leo, I hope you don't mind me talking about you like that, because I know that's not your style, but I can't help it, man. Like, seriously, I love you. I love what you do. But tell us about that initiative, because that was a pretty unique initiative that you were doing around the city at that time. And we may have froze a little bit, so we'll come back, I'm sure, here. Oh, yeah, there we go. We're back. Yeah, so hopefully you heard the question there, Leo. Just where did that, being a unicyclist and riding around the city and picking up glass, where did that even come from?
Well, you know what? As often, things for me, and I'm sure most of us, they come from something close to home, something that maybe in our everyday journey or where we go, what we do, we see something that, hey, I think I can help improve on that situation. And I think it had something to do with the fact when I was walking dogs at the animal shelter and on my unicycle with a sign that said, "Adopt a shelter dog." I got to see, as well as in my neighborhood while I was walking my two dogs, glass shards, bordering the sidewalk or the paths. And bordering, I mean, sometimes people would come along and just, So
we got a little delay here, friends. Just hang in.
Yeah. And it started out, as a one-off, but it quickly became a passion to where I thought, wow, if I could get other people, especially other dog walkers who've had to deal with cut pads of their dog's feet, they for sure would sign on. So I realized there was real good potential. And at the time, I didn't really know how to expand it, but at the time, a lovely woman by the name of Jane Verde was available through Brampton Safe City. Yep. And she connected with me, and she gave me some wings that I was able to take flight with. And for a while there, we got the word out, and I was getting contact from people who were saying, "Leo, this is so cool. I'm doing it. This is where I live." And my goal was to have a map. And this was before Facebook. So I had a map, and I was putting pins where people would email and say, "I'm doing it here." Because the idea was to adopt the walkway you most frequently pass and just be a member of WAG, Walkers Against Glass, and watch the tails of the dogs sway even more happily because we're doing that. Okay,
that's great.
I've been living kind of a fairy tale kind of experience with these kinds of things manifesting into greatness just on their own necessity and their own acceptance by our peers, fellow citizens, neighbors. And get this time, and this is a very short story. I was doing my usual walk with my dogs, and I heard bottles being broken from school in an area where a dog had been hurt. And I actually got an article in the paper about that dog, publicizing WAG. So I heard the bottle smashing, and my heart went like this.
Yeah.
And I went up, and there were some kids on the roof of the school looking for tennis balls. They couldn't find tennis balls, so they were throwing beer bottles off. And I said, "Leo, there's something to do here, but don't blow it." Because I could have said, "Bah, bah, bah, bah," and they would have ran away. I impassioned with them. They were hinged, ready to run. But I said, "Boys, give me your ears. Let me tell you a story." As they were on the roof. And they came down, and I explained to them the story about Simba, this beautiful dog who was really hurt right in that area from shards of glass. And you know what? They waited until I came back with a broom and dustbin. I get choked up because it means a lot to me. And we all cleaned up together. And to me, goodness. That's the power of seeing something through, and the education part where they will probably be advocates now not to do that.
Yeah,
and that's
exactly
a part that we miss as adults. We don't realize it's almost like they say with bees, honey and vinegar. You almost have to be a psychologist sometimes. Figure out how to approach people at a moment of contentious possibility.
Yeah. Oh, Leo, that's a phenomenal story, and again, I commend you. It's who you are, and I hope as people are listening to this and watching this, I hope people are inspired because every day, call it what you will, call it God, call it the universe, call it life. We are presented with opportunities to step up, and it doesn't have to be something that's like across the globe. It can be right in your own neighborhood. And I love how you've done that. You just see a need, again, a man of action, and you respond to it. But just the creative ways that you do that as well, Leo. Like, what a great example! Where I would say, as I hear you tell that story, there was a depth of love that's at stake here, and you could have been all grumpy, and those kids would have ran, and it would have been stopped. But I believe, as I hear you tell that story, that you actually loved these kids, and you understood they just need someone to teach them and show them a different way, and you did. And I got to tell you, like when I came across you at Norton Place Park in this initiative, and actually Jane Vardy is a part of our church at NBUC, so have the highest respect and love for Jane as well. Many will who are listening to this today. And Jane, I hope as you hear this, know that you encourage a guy like Leo to keep going on this. And way to go. We're in it together. But that was over 20 years ago. And if I see a piece of glass and I'm out walking, I pick that up and I think of Leo O'Brien. And so, Leo, you inspire us when you make these decisions. Okay, Leo, tell us about the one. This was one of my favorites as far as what you've done. And there's so many. Way more than we can cover today, and that's okay. That's not what today's about. But you called me, you contacted me when there was a local mosque that was being really abused by some people, and it was sending a message that we did not want to send in the city of Brampton, and that would be a message that we would want all people in all faiths to know that this is a city that they can come and be here and belong together. And so, tell us a little about that one, because that was one of the most beautiful things that we've ever done as a church. And it really, again, was you seeing a need and reaching out to say, hey, could we do this together? Where did that one come from?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because again, it's similar to what I had happen in the glass situation and other occurrences. I was passing by this mosque under construction. And it had been going on for an extra long time. That particular mosque had a change of location made where they were originally set to do it, couldn't. And so they relocated. Turned out to be a bigger and better place, as fate would have it. But going by to the shopping plaza at Trinity, I would see the construction, and it was taking a long time. And then I noticed front windows being smashed, and all of them. And I was really... I'm the kind of guy that I can't just keep driving by something and just do nothing. And so I thought about it. And guess what? The first thing that came to mind, I says, who has the power? Who can do something with me where we can get something done? And the funny thing is, I wasn't even thinking of what exactly, but boy, it unfolded rather quickly once I reached out to you, Jamie. So much so that it is one of my happiest moments in life as well, because once we got together, and funds were raised, we went in on our most special day, on Christmas Day, which happened on a Friday, and they were having their service. I had already reached out to the imam, and he gave me a tour, and he gave me a beautiful Quran written, like translated, and was so appreciative that this is what we were in the works of doing. And I said, but we're going to come by, and we want a few of us. And so there we went in, and I could have been in the Taj Mahal meeting the greatest emperor and felt equally as thrilled to be there with special people doing something as simply as I would refer to as a cross-denominational expression of love and support. And lo and behold, on Christmas Day, we went inside, and they, right in the middle of their service, they opened up, and we walked in, and we presented them a check for $500. And, that to this day, I don't tell many people that story, but I make a point of it, telling especially my Muslim brothers and sisters sometimes, I'm so proud of that. And I'm not overrun with pride, but sometimes collectively, when we do the right thing and we do it with passion and a kind of a strong belief, and especially with having Jesus, in this case, literally all around us,
Yeah.
all together for the love of God, their God, our God,
Yeah.
everyone's God. And it, to me, still, I've got so much wind in my sail from experiences like that,
Yeah.
Jamie, and that's
Yeah.
why I am who I am, because I'm blessed to have been the lucky bystander who just, hey, picked
Yeah.
up what was that needed to be picked up and put it where it needed to be put.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, responding to a need, Leo, and I think sometimes we miss these opportunities because we don't realize that there's all kinds of people that also want to be a part of them. That's what I love about that story, Leo. You saw the need. I didn't. I had no idea. And when you brought it to my attention, and I shared it with some of our church, everybody was like, "How can we be a part of this? How can we help out?" And I think sometimes I would call it leadership, but maybe it's just reacting to an initiative, whatever it is. But sometimes people are just waiting for someone to say, "Hey, let's do something," and they're all ready to get on board. And that happened with that one. And it was. I agree. It was a sacred moment. We ended up going on a Friday because that was the day of worship for the mosque, and it ended up being Christmas Day. And out of that, actually, I don't know if I've told this, Leo, but out of that, we started something that had just begun a little bit, but it took off after that. And it was called Christmas Day Outreach. So every Christmas Day, we have hundreds of people from the church who go out and do outreach in the community in all kinds of different ways. And that day was part of just helping make that happen. So I think that's what happens whenever you do the right thing. Other people, of course, will get on board for it. They can't wait to be a part of it, and then it always leads to more blessing. And so that was a special one for sure.
Yeah. And you know what you've just described there, I refer to it as passing the baton.
Yeah.
We're all in a marathon. We're all running around and around, and hopefully in some kind of order. And when one gets tired, we just hand it to the next person, and they give it their best, and then the next person, and everyone's a part of it. No one needs to, take credit for being the general or the super brain trust. Actually, just to be an equal participating member, to feel significance in by number strength alone, we've made a difference. That's unifying and heartwarming, and the kind of stuff that isn't that hard to do, but you just almost have to have the right ingredients, and it takes people like what you all represent, and almost me like a scout, going out looking for things sometimes. And then, imagine how I would have felt, Jamie, just to flip it a bit and say, if I didn't had you to call, and the only reason why I had you to call is because you and your many fellow good people at North Bramley United, it was like an army of goodness that I just intrinsically knew I got to call Jamie because I'm sure we can improve this and do something. And lo and behold,
Yeah, 100%. And I love that, the army of goodness. I mean, that's what the church is supposed to be. We always say the church is supposed to be a bright light, a beacon of light, of hope in the world. And you just gave us one more opportunity to do that. And really, really do believe that that's what the Good News podcast actually is all about. We want to share these kinds of stories because that's a great example. That was a story the media, they were picking up on it. They were picking up on the fact that there were vandalists, there was hate crimes going on. And that's the message that gets spread if we're not careful. That's the only message that gets spread if we're not careful. So we've said with the Good News podcast, we want to lift up the other side, that there are good things happening. There are people who want to rise up and do incredible things in this community. To be honest, the gospel literally means good news. And so Jesus came, the gospel of Jesus is meant to be good news. And I know it isn't always received or even offered that way, but that at the heart of it is really what it's meant to be. And that's who we're meant to be as his followers. So when you brought that one forward, this just aligned with everything that we believe we're supposed to be and who Jesus is. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, for me, it was a home run that we all contributed to running around the bases, feeling really good about. And, I find too, these things, they leave an impression, the kind of impression that will carry us further to other related things, because the impressions from these great moments or exchanges of love and support, it's really strongly impressioned in us. And I often think if we did more of this and got our children to realize about more and hear about these kinds of things and see the valiant deeds and get them believing about, wow, that's really great. And imagine they're talking to their friends about it a little more instead of maybe all the other things they talk about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know that's what we do. But it's stories like that anyone with a care or a heart warms up to. And I have so much love for newer Canadians. I like to pick and choose stories that I can just put so much fresh air and wind in their sail, because they deserve it, just like we deserve whatever we got in terms of when we came. And let's all help each other and just the rolling wave of good news and support. And back and forth. Like when I run into certain denominations, I know what some of their characteristics, some of their beautiful traits are, and I'll find a way of bringing it up and just saying really nice things to them that they probably haven't heard that much. And they go away like we're instantly friends. And whenever they see me, I can see there's love right away.
Absolutely.
Because, if you think hard enough and if you're impressioned enough to be thinking of the right words, they'll come to you magically sometimes. And you don't have to worry about coming on too strong or full of something. No, they see it for what it is: loving outreach and expressions of care and acquainting worthwhile. And where I happen to live, it's a gateway, and people are walking by all the time. So sometimes it's funny. When I'm doing gardening, I kind of get carried away, and I'm talking. And sometimes my wife, she's such a kidder, right? She'll call me up. She says, "Leo, break's over."
I can imagine. I can imagine. That's awesome, Leo. There was one thing that you shared in that you've done over the past. I'd love to talk a bit about and hear a bit more about. And that was, it says when you were 29. So this is a few years back. But you worked on a neighborhood street and brought 4 different languages together around some safety work. But it obviously ended up being way more than that and transformed the street and the neighborhood. And would love to hear a bit more about that. Partly because I hope what people are hearing today. Because I think sometimes we do wonder, and I get it, life can be hard and heavy. It really can be. And the issues of the world can seem insurmountable. And sometimes we wonder, can I make a difference? I guess if you heard one thing from today's podcast, we hope you hear that, yes, you can. We all can, just by responding to the needs that we see every day. But we're really encouraging us as a city, from our church's perspective, to host and hold neighborhood parties. We believe that with the diversity of our city, one of the best ways that we can interact with each other and way more than tolerate, actually share life and together, is by coming together in our neighborhoods. And we live in a time where obviously COVID has changed it even more challenging. This is going to be even more necessary when we're allowed to do these things, we believe. But it already was. We're driving in and out of our driveways. We're always online. There's information on our phones. But we're not always connecting with our neighborhoods. So we believe that this is a huge initiative for the future, really helping people connect in their neighborhoods. You started this years ago. So tell us about this experience, how it happened, and what was the result of it?
Oh, this is special. I only found myself in this neighborhood because we had came together as a group of 12 apartments, 4 triplexes that bought the building, transformed it into a co-op, and had to relocate while they rebuilt the building. And so I moved into this heavily, densely populated neighborhood with hundreds of apartment buildings and a real healthy mix of everyone. And particularly in those days, it was what they refer to as the wonderful time of influx from people from Asia, mostly from Vietnam and Cambodia. And a lot of them spoke French. And so they were in a neighborhood where we were located to, that was ripe for kind of a failure in communication. Because of that, they were only speaking French, and everyone who was living there was English and had issues to begin with. And I just happened to be blessed to be popped in that spot. And I swear, I actually felt like that famous gentleman, his name was Buthim, a very famous doctor, because it was ripe for work, for bringing people together. And I saw in front of my own eyes a little girl, 4-year-old. She wasn't seriously hit, but she was struck by a car as I was looking down the road, a one-way street that someone would use as a corridor to beat the light on the next street. And I said, wow, we got to do something about this. And I had no idea what was coming. the fact that I had friends who were Cambodian and Vietnamese, I had some of them translate my English safety notice. We had it in French, English, French, Cambodian, Vietnamese, and I put it up in about 100 different entrances to that many apartment buildings. And right away, I saw people were looking at, especially the Cambodian, wow, is that ever beautiful? And I started realizing people were starting to, their guards and their misconceptions and their prejudices were starting to fall by the side, because the humanity of, we're all doing this for the children. And in this one moment, I'll never forget, I got a picture of a child, a Vietnamese child, holding two bikes that were donated to our group by a church group. They said, Leo, what you're doing here, we got these bikes, take them. You use them for the kids. So they became communal bikes. So I took a picture, put something together, submitted to the local paper, and it was distributed to all the homes in the newspaper.
Wow.
You know, the story, the street news, the street safety campaign. Out of my surprise comes a fellow. He's got the paper clenched up. He sees me. He says, hey, I got a bone to pick with you. I said, really? He said, yeah. And he said, and I can't repeat exactly what he said, but he was upset because I didn't have a Canadian-looking child in the photo that was in the paper. And this is where, let's say somebody, and let's say in this case, it must have been God, okay, Leo, your approach, very critical at this moment. Do not blow it. And instead of, putting him in his place, I said, that's a perspective I hadn't thought of. And I walked away. You know what? This fellow was a neighbor of that little girl who was hit by the car. And I think once he said, oh, I sure told that good guy, Leo. And they said, idiot, he's trying to help. And so he came back and he volunteered. He became my biggest petitioner, getting signatures that we got eventually presented to the city. And they literally took the arrow on that one-way street and flipped it the other way and eliminated the whole problem as easy as that.
Wow.
And along the way, I learned a very valuable lesson. As we say, without doubt, the best remedy for anger is delay. And I learned that so many times in my dealings, where the fruits are so much greater if you can just keep it in and try and almost be like an understanding, loving mother, to her children's challenges that come to parents every day. Instead of firing off from the hip, just hold it back. And maybe something far greater will come as your reward for showing that restraint.
That is awesome. Again, with all of these experiences, there's always lessons to be learned that are deeper. And I love that. I love that you have that sense of reflection, Leo. No wonder you're living life the way you do. You talked about a sign getting changed, and you've done some things over the years here in Brampton that have been very. Because it's one thing to respond to a need that you see on your street or in the community, but it's another thing to work through the political systems and the powers that be, so to speak, to bring change. And I really appreciate the way you've done that over the years as well. You've helped bring a couple of traffic lights into Heart Lake. I know there was a huge thing happening several years back around a high rise coming to the Heart Lake community that wouldn't have probably been the best for the whole community from a traffic and population perspective. And so just maybe tell us a little bit about how you found yourself engaged in those conversations. And my guess is some of the qualities that you exhibit in some of these stories, like patience and understanding, but also positivity and encouragement and clear communication and naming what's wrong or what's right, how all of those have come together to help bring some of those things. Because some of us listening to this may think, wow, I'd like to bring that to the city, or I'd like that bring to the political system, but I'm overwhelmed just thinking about it. But again, you've done these things. So tell us how that's happened and how you've seen that work.
Well, one of my favorites and one of the most impactful, and it was something that had to happen. The area where we live is enclosed completely, and we only have two roads access to Sandalwood. And we saw the rise of traffic that if we didn't have some lights to get out of our development, we'd be, I think I called it lethal leapfrog. And I remember in the article that was written in The Guardian about that whole thing, the term lethal leapfrog was mentioned, because to get out when you don't have a light, to get in the middle island, nobody wants to be in that situation. So, but I'll get back to the most amazing thing. A neighborhood lady came up to me, and this is what happens. Once you get known for being the guy or one of the guys, you attract incentively placed, well thought ideas. And so this woman came up to me and said, Leo, you know the situation there. And she looked at me with this really determined look. Somebody has to do something.
And that's you.
Yeah. And it was so easy. I'll tell you how easy it was. I had already figured out, okay, we need signatures. So I put 2 signs on the corners of the big development where we live that said, please sign street safety petition at local plaza. And we didn't have to go door to door. All the merchants were thrilled to have a little clipboard on their place of business at our plaza. And we just directed the traffic there to sign the petition. In no time at all, I went with another fellow and I got at City Hall. He was sitting down and I was at the podium. We stretched out the petition. It was about 15 feet between where I was standing at the podium and where he was sitting. And he was 78 at the time. But funnily enough, someone else came up to counter us with their own petition against the lights. So we had to go again with another petition that my 78-year-old friend went on the south side. And together, finally, because if it doesn't meet the traffic flow count in all intersections, technically, it has to be a political decision. And a political decision needs everybody on the council to agree. And the first time we went, they said, oh, yeah, we'd all like to have that too. But when we went back after the other people were against us, and they said, well, we got a divided house here. And I said, oh, my God, it's the worst. The curse is of death. But luckily, my good neighbor, a fellow like ourselves, took the bull by the horn. He went himself door to door with a second petition. We went back with that, and it became a slam dunk. And the lights at Sandalwood and Glovergate and Royal Palm became a reality. And that's how it kind of happened. It was a big team effort. And I don't pick up.
Just broken up a little bit here. We're obviously doing this remotely because of the lockdown we're currently in, and thanks, Leo, for your patience and everyone else.
I'm not championing things that are doomed to fail. I end up championing things that are destined to succeed because the people want it, and so we almost become conveyors of good news. And the catalyst, the conduit. And I mean. In earlier civilizations, that's all they used to do in some ways. They a lot of people don't know this. A table saw was first invented by a woman. Okay. She was a shaker, and they had meetings. Everybody had a role. And Sister Tabitha was her name. And in a meeting where I think she got tired of all these men sweating and using by hand, somebody figured out a moving wheel pushed the wood, and it was by a woman. So there's no gender bias. I just count my blessings that we have the empowered women around us that keep us men on task and keep us literally from destroying ourselves.
That's great. That's great. Well, Leo, just love how you've worked through the systems and just the way that you've done that. One of the things, Leo, I want to check in with you about is you did some deep thinking about your life in preparation for today, and you've named to me what a gift that ended up being. And tell us a bit about that power of reflecting and just thinking about your life and what you've been about, and just what has that experience been like for you to prepare for this today.
Well, again, I owe thanks to you for starting that process, because I guess in life, sometimes we're really too busy to do certain things, and reflecting and kind of especially we kind of have a dysfunctional viewpoint on good merit sometimes, you're just a braggart, or, sometimes we lose the essence of what it's all about. And in my case, I guess I always struggled with, I'm humble. I don't want to, I don't want to live off my past glories and sell that to people. But you helped me realize, with the connection of God and greater purpose, no, Leo, we'd like to hear, what you have to say. And you know what came to me during this exercise, Jamie, which really blows me away? I biblically, I'm not that up to speed, certainly, but I remember there was a story where a part of a biblical reaccounting that someone was, I don't know if they had some problems, but they didn't realize that Jesus or the Lord was carrying them on their shoulders. I think it was. And there was some added way that this person found peace, because I think they maybe just thought, I know in my case, sometimes, and many of us, we can get caught up in ourselves and our own needs, and it can kind of snowball. And when I was younger, at a turning point in my life, I actually got help from a priest who reminded me, Leo, it's not just about you, you know? And at that point, I kind of changed my life. I sort of realized, hey, if I get personally more busy thinking of others, I'll probably be better. And that's been my secret to success. And it's like everything. The more you do, the more familiar, the more experience, the better you get. And in my case, thanks to you helped me put it all together and realize that much more. How blessed I am to have gone through this and have the kind of disposition that all I want to do without being overbearing, but just encourage other people and be a beacon as we all can be, to help each other, to say the right thing, and let everyone work at their pace and do their own thing. It's really part of the plan, I think, the master plan. And here's something. When I started working with 5-year-olds, I had to really be careful about the language, the words. The words are sacred. How about this? A term everyone uses, we don't even think about it. Wow, boy, you sure did good. You killed 2 birds with 1 stone. Or you scared me half to death. Or, cross your heart and hope to die. So I changed all those. I said, you scared me half to life. Cross your heart and hope to live. And that's 2 eggs instead of 1. Like, who wants to even hurt 1 bird with 1 stone? It's crazy. Or my favorite. Hey, when young kids get together, they try and do something really helpful and it doesn't work out. It kind of maybe goes a little south. And then someone says, well, don't you know, nice guys finish last. That's rubbish. Nice guys aren't in a race. Nice guys are living life to the fullest and helping each other. They're not concerned about where they finish, or, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Those things we should throw right out of all history and recollection, because they are unhelpful phraseology.
Absolutely. Leo, man, like I hope you could develop a comedy routine on some of those phrases that you just reversed and transformed. That was beautiful. I love that. I love that spin. It's not just a spin, like it's just the way you live your life. And what you just named, I think, is core to living a life of fulfillment. And it's certainly core to the gospel, that to recognize that it isn't just about us. Life isn't just about us. And, not to go too far down this track, but we're doing a series coming up in March called Surrender on Sunday mornings. And it really is modeling what Jesus did, who came and gave his life for all. And we experience great blessing as we do that. Leo, you're 68. You just turned 68. And I would say with you, as much as you've had so much in your past, you're the kind of guy in my mind who lives in a way that the best is yet to come. And so what do you have in mind as you think about this stage of your life and what might be next for you? And maybe you don't know, because I think sometimes for you, my sense is, and it's a great way to live, things just come and you're ready to respond to them. But what's your sense of where you're at in life these days? And as you're taking some time to reflect here on what your life has been about, what's to come for you, do you think? What's your sense of that?
Well, one thing, I'm doing a lot more unicycling than I've ever done. I'm doing a lot more unicycling and juggling for my own, and I'm really happy that my wife and we do a lot of cycling together. And here's a funny thing. I didn't really like a trailer because lifting the bikes on and off. So we got a big enough vehicle. We can fit 1 bike and a unicycle. It's perfect. So that's what we do. And as in all good relationships, I really think women are so beautifully blessed with their empowerment and abilities to just be the makers and the doers of this world. It's only fitting that my wife should always be ahead of me on her 2 wheels, and I'm trying to keep up with her on 1. And so we do a lot of cycling together, and we've been doing traveling. Like, I revisited places when I was 19 and 20, 45 years later, to go to the same villages that people reached out and helped me find work, because I was over there working for a few years, traveling. And that's where I really got impression with the kindness and the good-hearted people that live everywhere. And if you're especially a young person, and if you're blessed to have an honest-looking face, perhaps, and they pick up on it, they'll give you anything. And you could be in any country in the world. Especially in those days, it was something that really made me realize that I was a small part of the larger whole, and all of these good-willed people just waiting to help someone that comes along. So, how could I ever falter from a recipe like that? And I just see the future just being where I have more time to spend with Rosemary, because we were, as many couples, busy, and I was working afternoons, she was working days, and for years and years and years. And now that we've been both retired for a few years, we have done some amazing traveling and our cycling, and we become the twosome that we were always intended to be. So I would say the best of my years to come are going to be spent with the love of my life, just loving being with her and sharing moments of life together. And along the way, I get to almost by fate just pick and choose little initiatives that can make a little difference and make me feel like I'm still connected, and just feel blessed and grateful for this wonderful life.
Oh, that's awesome, Leo. What a great way to live and enter this next chapter. And I know, and I think we all know who are watching and listening to this podcast today, that when the needs present themselves, Leo O'Brien will still be ready to step up, because that's just who you are and what you do. And Leo, thank you so much for today. Love you so much, my man, and appreciate you, what you've done, but also just the way that you've done it. And I know many people will be so inspired by listening to this today. So thanks, Leo, for joining us. Yeah.
Well, that really makes me feel really terrific. And, the little things we do all add up. And,
100%.
and the more we encourage each other and help each other and lead by example, the better we'll all be. And I can't thank you enough, Jamie, for giving me this great privilege to meet with you today and share some of our experiences, knowing that they came from a good place and they went to a good place, and here we are talking about good things from good places, about good people. So, power to all of us to continue on. Right?
Amen. Right on. Well, it has been my pleasure to hear these stories today. I hope everyone else as well. Friends, thank you for joining on the Good News Podcast. Next week, we have another special guest, Dr. Joseph Savaggio. He's a dentist here in Brampton, and another good news story about someone who's running a business that is blessing many people and certainly working very hard to be a blessing in this community. So you'll enjoy that story. It's a great story as we share more good news on the Good News Podcast. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. God bless you and have a great day.
Thank you. Bye now.
Thank you for listening to the Good News Podcast with Jamie Holtom. If you liked what you heard today, please share it with a friend who may benefit from today's conversation. And if you want to hear more, be sure to subscribe to this show and turn on your notifications so you never miss an episode. Thanks again. We hope you enjoyed today's discussion, and we'll see you next time.